The dilemma of what to get for your needs. It's probably the number one problem that most people who are new to digital cameras, digital camcorders, who are trying to upgrade or make a change, move on from their phone into the realm of digital devices, such as some of these cameras and camcorders you see back here. The one thing that people are looking for is that optical zoom. When you want to get a lot closer, that's when you start looking at some of these devices. So let's start with your absolute base model, something just to get you a little bit closer to your subject and still maintain some decent image quality in good light. Okay, let's start with just a basic camcorder like this one right here. What you get with your basic camcorders, like this guy here. This is the Canon Vixia HF R800, and it's a very inexpensive camcorder. It's about $200. I paid $150 for it on some special. You know, I've seen it as high as $269. But anyways, what you get here, a very basic device. You flip it open, it turns on, and you basically hit record, and you can start recording. And it's just that easy to use. Now, what you get with this for $200, you get a really long zoom range. You get fairly decent image quality in good light. However, for that price, you're not going to get very good image quality in low light. Okay, so a question I get asked all the time is, what's an inexpensive option to get a lot of range in something that's really good in low light? And my answer is nothing. There is no inexpensive option for that combination. Unfortunately, that's just the nature of the way lenses are made and the way this works. You're gonna spend a lot of money if you want really good clear shots with a lot of range in darker situations. I'm sorry, I wish I had better news, but that's just the reality. So you take this same camcorder out into good light and you get really good results. Vlogging, I'm holding it in my hand. I mean literally just holding it in my hand. I don't have it attached to anything. So just want to give you an idea. And this is full auto mode. I'm not screwing around with any specialized settings or anything. But just to give you an idea. But you're not going to get the same results from something that's $200 that from something that's $2,000. Let's be realistic. Doesn't mean you can't get good results. You're just not going to get the same. So keep your expectations realistic, and I think you'll be just fine. Unfortunately, the limitations to something like this are that, yeah, it's excellent outdoors, it's excellent for beginners, it's extremely easy to use. To charge it, plug this into your camera, plug this in, you don't even have to take the battery out, plug this in the wall, and it'll charge. Now, it does have an 8-hour charge, and the battery is this little tiny guy. It doesn't last all that long. You'll get a couple hours of recording. But again, for $200, keep your expectations realistic. And this is fantastic for the casual user, somebody who wants to go on vacation, who wants to get some range with optical zoom, like I said, where you're using the glass to actually zoom in, and you're gonna get a nice close-up clear image like you're standing there, versus that digital zoom. So this is basically just a small step up from your cell phone in the fact that you're gonna get closer to the subject. However, honestly, nowadays, you're actually going to get better video quality from your cell phone. That's just the nature of the cell phones being excellent now, having excellent cameras. But the reason you would get this, almost the sole reason, is for the zoom. And the fact you can vlog with it fairly easily. You can turn it around. It's got speakers in the front. Right here are the speakers. So, you know, for people who want to vlog, you just simply turn it around, you're talking to it, you're vlogging. You can use an external microphone for it, like this little lapel mic I'm using right now for this video. There's a little spot you can plug in. However, in order to do that, the actual microphone itself needs to have a power supply. Unlike with a DSLR, which I'm filming with right now, this little guy, you cannot plug it in a simple lapel mic without having like some sort of battery power to provide the power amplification. I don't know. I think it's because this battery is so small that it's not capable of running the running the video and supplying power to an external microphone. So there's that. A couple things about this. 1080p, 60 frames a second, which is pretty standard. You can keep it plugged in. You can keep it plugged in and record, which is different from a lot of cameras. Stuff like that. Very basic device. Just something to get your foot in the door with recording. And if you want to not have use your phone, you want to use it for something else, here you go. So there's your basic camcorder. Now those are going to run you, that's a pretty basic model. Actually probably the lower end. You can get those all the way up that record 4K. I mean, I've seen those. They've got them out now, Canon does, for $1,200, $1,300 that'll record 4K and give you a whole lot of different options with those. Okay, so that's your basic little camcorder. And again, that's the Vixia RF800. I'll link that in the description below if you want to check out the price on Amazon. But now let's move over here to a step up from that. Now here we get into a point and shoot. Now this is the Canon PowerShot SX530HS. That's just their model number. This came out about 3 or 4 years ago. Again, I'm just showing you the styles here for somebody who's trying to get into it. Now what you're going to get here is you're going to get that long zoom range, again, optical zoom. This one's a 50x, which means it's 50 times what your standard cell phone would get, for example. So that's why you would look at some of these options. So you can get that bird up in the tree that you can't even get near. This will zoom all the way in and get it optically, so you'll get good image quality when you get there. But you're getting that range. Again, it's all about the range. The reason you'd upgrade from your cell phone into some of these guys is because you want to get that range. Okay, because let's face it, like I said, your cell phones nowadays take excellent pictures. The cameras in your phones are fantastic. The recording capabilities are fantastic. Unfortunately, you're limited to, that huge, you've got one perspective basically in your cell phone. Unless you get some of the newer iPhone, that new iPhone 11, you can get a couple. Samsung, I think, has a couple, but you're still only talking minimal distance variations. For here, you're talking 50 times optical. There is no optical viewfinder, so you can't stick your eye up to it like you can a DSLR or a mirrorless camera. You have to shoot entirely off the back of the screen. And on this particular model here, this is not a touchscreen. It's very easy to use. You turn it on, you can basically start zooming right here all the way in, and you're ready to take pictures. It's got a very simple menu, nice auto mode. That's the one nice thing about Canon that I really like, is their menu system. So whether, like I said, I'm not trying to promote brands here, but whether you're looking at Sony, Nikon, Canon, I'd say Canon has probably the easiest menu system to learn for anybody new. It's just very, very simple. It's very intuitive, and they do that intentionally. It's just a smart way to do business. Great little beginner options. And some of them give excellent quality, but you're going to pay a lot more for. So here you're talking a couple $100 for your point and shoots and your camcorders. And like I said, the biggest upgrade from there in your phone that you're probably used to using is that range you're getting. Now, the one thing I will say about the point and shoots, most of them aren't very good indoors. I was talking about. Now, luckily for photos, this does have a flash. And also, one thing to note about this, not only does it not have the viewfinder like a DSLR does, but it also does not have the flip out screen like the DSLR and a lot of the Canon mirrorless have. And like I said, also it does not have a touch screen. So no flip out screen or touch screen. So I can't see what I'm filming right now, where if I was using this, I could just flip this out and I could see to make sure I'm in focus and to make sure that the exposure is right and all that. Now I'm shooting this in auto mode. I don't know how it sounds because I'm just going, everything's off camera here. Okay, this is not a very customizable option, but for $250, it gives you that long range, and it's basically a really good photo, camera. I mean, let's be honest, it's not a fantastic video camera, although it works. You can certainly vlog with it, although it's, like I said, without the mic, it's got its limitations. But for a beginner or a casual shooter, totally fine. And it'll get you through on the weekends, it'll get you through on vacation, you get some really good usable pictures. I'm trying not to lose you here if you're totally new to this, but even with those f1.8s and stuff, typically the more you zoom, it's a variable aperture, which means the longer you zoom or the farther you zoom in on something, the smaller the aperture gets. So it'll go from like f1.8 at, let's say, 24 millimeters, which is a nice wide shot, to when you zoom in to say 100 millimeters, which is, you know, in on somebody's face, that aperture will now drop to like 4.5 or 5.3. And what happens there is now you introduce a lot of grain and stuff like that. So, and you're completely limited to what you're buying at the time, because it's not interchangeable. So let's get into the next step up from, say, your point and shoots and that, which would be your entry-level DSLR cameras. Now this one here is the Canon Rebel EOS T7i. This is actually the first camera that I bought, and I actually bought these after the fact. But when you get into this, now you're talking much more versatility, for the simple fact that these lenses, all the lenses here, they're interchangeable. And you can get into some of the specialized lenses, some of the professional type lens, the lenses that the professional photographers would use that do all sorts of different effects with your video, with your photos. They give you that nice, you know, this blurry background effect when you get down in like the f1.8, f1.4 apertures. These start to, here you can start to get into some of the more advanced low light photography and videos with, again, those smaller apertures. You can get into those longer zooms, like those huge lenses. Those will work on here. And these entry-level cameras, Canon, they've got them down as low as, I think, $400 now. They do a good job with video. Most of them are 1080p at 60 frames a second, the Canon entry-level. With that addition of being able to change the lenses, you're going to be able to dictate the look you want a lot better, because you can change the lens. And the more you get involved into these types of cameras, the more you'll understand what I mean with the lenses, if you do. But if you're a total beginner, it's going to come with a lens called the kit lens, which is a very basic lens. And unfortunately, the problem a lot of people run into when they buy these is they get the kit lens, they start shooting with it, and they quickly realize that they're not getting the results they want. They're not getting what they thought they were getting. And it's because they don't understand the lens. So if you do get you know, even an entry-level DSLR, like this is the T7i, this is probably a mid-range to entry-level. They have Canon's lineup, they have the SL3 now. I think that's their latest, very like base model DSLR. And then they also have a mirrorless line, like an M50 and stuff like that. So there's a lot of options if you want to get into replaceable lenses, which will completely open up a whole new world for you in this, you know, the photography, videography world. But then there's a whole nother line that I didn't get into, which is your little action cameras. I don't have a GoPro, or, you know, nowadays there's so many different little action cameras where you can mount them on hats and on shoulders and on bikes, and, you know, just carry around, and they're 4K capable. Some of them have mic inputs. I mean, they've really come a long way. They're these little tiny cameras. This here is a Samsung 360 camera, but you can also mount it and use it as a little action camera and stuff like that. But these guys are typically anywhere from $200 to $500 up to, you know, depending on how high quality you want to go. A lot of them are weatherproof. They're pretty durable. They're small. They're very portable. They do a decent job with video. This one, like I said, is full, gets you that full 360 where you can view it in the headset. This is like $150. These are very basic little devices that you're going to see, but that's what you're getting out of these guys. It's nothing fancy, not much more than your cell phone can give you, other than the fact that some of them are pretty indestructible. Some of them give excellent 4K. And some of them give you that 360, the wider field of view, you know. If that's what you're into, I'd research these guys. The action cameras is what I'd call them. You know, I want to touch on that because you're going to probably see a display of, you know, the GoPros and the little action cameras, and you may be curious what those are, and that's what they're good at. That's what they're good for, I should say. You know, if you're on the go, if you need something, if you want to basically document what you're doing and just, like I said, mount it somewhere on your body or on your vehicle and just let it go. Those are great. Now, the one thing I do want to touch on, for the somebody who's really trying to get into the higher end video production, or, you know, dabble into some of the higher end photography, or possibly professional photography. This is the newer camera that just came out from Canon. It's the Canon 90D, and it's what's called the crop sensor camera, which means that basically on a full frame like I'm using now, you see this much in view. On the crop sensor, it's going to crop that image to like this much will be in the frame here, as you can see my fingers. So it'll basically zoom in this much, and what you see in here is going to be in focus. That's called the crop sensor. It's just a smaller sensor inside here. And let's get into some of the specs. This newer camera here is about $1,200. It's got 4K capabilities. It shoots really fast. The shutter speed's really fast. It's a higher megapixel, 32 megapixel sensor. This is their new top of the line. Like I said, this is about the $1,200 range. It's got the fully articulating screen. It's got a lot of customizable functions to it, way more than I'm going to get into right now for this type of video. But if you are expecting to really stay, you know, if this is something you are really going to go gung-ho with, right, you may want to consider getting their latest and greatest. I'll just say that, which in the DSLR Canon world is the 90D so far, but something seems to come out every couple months that tops the last thing. So and then there's that whole mirrorless lineup that I'm not even going to get into, but I know it's a lot to go over, especially if you're new, or you think you have an eye for photography, you want to learn about videography and stuff like that. There's a lot of stuff out there. There's just so many products, so many brands. There's so much to do. My only advice to you would be, have an idea what you're looking for, what you are trying to accomplish. Once you know what you're trying to accomplish, then somebody can, either in the camera store you go to, or, you know, watching YouTube videos, whatever, you'll be able to find what you're looking for. But you have to be honest with yourself and with your budget. Because if you think you're going to get, like I just showed, this type of footage right here with a $200 camcorder, you're not. You're kidding yourself. And you're not going to be able to figure it out, because it's just not going to happen. It's just not possible, you know. But if you're realistic and you know what you want and you know what you're trying to accomplish, you could hopefully nail it on the first try and save yourself a lot of time, money, and headache. And be happy with what you get and accomplish what you're trying to do. So that's it. I'm gonna go ahead and end this video, and if you want to see the prices on any of these things, I'm gonna link them in the description below. And don't get overwhelmed with this stuff. It's easy to get overwhelmed, and just do your research. I'm sure you'll be fine. Trust me. I started with this a couple of years ago, and now I have accumulated just curiosity, and I have actually shot professionally. I did my first wedding not too long ago, a couple weeks actually. I used a bunch of different cameras. It was a whole learning experience, a whole process. But again, I went in, I knew what I was doing, I knew what I needed, and I had a good idea of how I was going to do it. And it worked out, because I was realistic with the equipment I had, and with knowing what I know now, I knew what I could do with the equipment I had. So my expectations and the reality of what I could do lined up, and I did it. And it all started when I bought this guy here on sale a couple of years ago and started making YouTube videos. So if I could do that, somebody who's never touched a camera before that point, please don't let this intimidate you, is what I'm trying to say. There's a lot of stuff out there. And if you buy the wrong thing or make the wrong decision, you can always resell it or trade it in. There's always a market for it. So anyways, I hope this is helpful for you. Thank you for watching. Subscribe. Have a happy holiday season.